9. The attitude of Russian and Polish Social Democrats and of the Second International to self-determination. The differences between the Revolutionary Social Democrats of Russia and the Polish Social Democrats on the question of self-determination came out into the open as early as 1903. At the Congress which adopted the program of the Russian Social Democratic Labor Party, and which, despite the protest by the Polish Social Democrat delegation, inserted Clause 9 recognizing the rights of nations to self-determination. Since then, the Polish Social Democrats have on no occasion repeated in the name of self-determination, in the name of their party, to propose to remove Clause 9 from our party's program or to replace it by some other formula. In Russia, where the oppressed nations account for no less than 57% of the population, or over 100 million, where they occupy mostly the border regions, where some of them are more highly cultured than the Great Russians, where the political system is especially barbarous and medieval, where the bourgeois democratic revolution has not been consummated, there in Russia recognition of the right of nations oppressed by Tsarism to free succession from Russia is absolutely obligatory for social democrats for the furtherance of their democratic and socialist aims. Our party, re-established in January 1912, adopted a resolution in 1913 reaffirming the right of self-determination, explaining it precisely the above concrete sense. The rampage of Great Russian chauvinism in 1914 to 1916, both among the bourgeoisie and among the opportunist socialists, Rubinov, Plenikov, Nashidayo, etc., has given us even more reason to insist on this demand and to regard those who deny it as actual supporters of Great Russian chauvinism and Tsarism. Our party declares that it most emphatically declines to accept any responsibility for such actions against the right to self-determination. The latest formation of the position of the Polish Social Democrats on the national question, the declaration of the Polish Social Democrats at the Zimmerwald Conference, contains the following ideas. The declaration condemns the German and other governments' regard to the Polish regions as a pawn, and in the forthcoming compensation games depriving the Polish people of the opportunity of deciding their own fate themselves. Quote, Polish Social Democrats resolutely and solemnly protest against the carving up and parceling out of the whole country. End quote. They flay the socialists who left it to the Holozaurians to, quote, liberate the oppressed peoples. End quote. They express the conviction that only participation in the approaching struggle of international revolutionary proletariat, the struggle for socialism, will, quote, break the fetters of national oppression and destroy all forms of foreign rule, will ensure for the Polish people the possibility of free all-round development as an equal member of the Concord of Nations. End quote. The declaration recognizes that, quote, for the Poles, end quote, the war is doubly fratricidal. These positions do not differ in substance from the recognition of the rights of nations to self-determination, although the political formations are even vaguer and more indeterminate than most programs and resolutions of the Second International. They attempt to express these ideas as precise political formulations and define their applicability to the capitalist system or only to the socialist system will show even more clearly the mistake of the Polish Social Democrats make in denying self-determination of nations. The decision of the London International Socialist Congress of 1896, which recognized the self-determination of nations should be implemented on the basis of the above theses by specifying 1. The particular urgency of this demand under imperialism, and 2. The political conventionalism and class content of all the demands of political democracy. The one under discussion included 3. The necessity to distinguish the concrete tasks of the Social Democrats of the oppressor nations from those of the Social Democrats of the oppressed nation. 4. The inconsistent, purely verbal recognition of self-determination by the opportunists and Kautskyites, which is therefore hypocritical in its political significance. 5. The actual identity of the chauvinists and these social democrats, especially those of the great powers, Great Russians, Anglo-Americans, Germans, French, Italians, Japanese, etc., who do not uphold the freedom to secede for the colonies and nations oppressed by quote, their own, end quote, nations. 6. The necessity to subordinate the struggle for the demand under discussion for all basic demands of political democracy directly to the revolutionary mass struggle for the overthrow of the bourgeois governments and for the achievement of socialism. The introduction into the international of the viewpoint of certain small nations, especially that of the Polish Social Democrats, who have been led by the struggle against the Polish bourgeoisie, which deceives the people and its nationalist slogans to the incorrect denial of self-determination, would be a theoretical mistake, a substitution of brutalism for Marxism, implying in practice involuntary support of the most dangerous social chauvinism and opportunism of the great nations.